episode of Codo Cinema, the podcast show where I talk about movies. I'm your host, Mark Codo, aka Codoman. Well, folks, before I dive into the movie topic that I'm going to talk about, I just want to let everybody know that we are closing in on 200 episodes of Codo Cinema. Now, I know what you all are thinking. How is this possible? Like, how are we almost close to 200 episodes? I mean, it's amazing. It's like I remembered from 2022. I was finishing up my final year at Eastern Illinois University. I reached 100 episodes, and that was back in May of 2022 when I hit 100 episodes. And now, as of 2025, we are closing in at 200 episodes, and this is episode 197. We are 3 episodes down until Codo Cinema hits its 200th episode. And I just want to say the feeling of it is amazing, and we are almost at the 200th episode. So we are 3 episodes down. So let's hit the 200 episode mark, shall we? All right, let's do this. We are 3 episodes down. Let's make this happen, folks. So anyway, that's basically about it for that part. But anyway, for this movie, now for this episode, the movie that I am going to talk about, now this one, came out in 2023, and it's basically an action comedy film. And this movie that I'm going to talk about is, The Machine. To anybody who doesn't know what this movie is, The Machine is a 2023 American action comedy film directed by Peter Atencio, inspired by the 2016 stand-up routine of the same name created by comedian and actor Bert Kreischer. The film stars Kreischer as a fictionalized version of himself, with Mark Hamill, Jimmy Tatro, Iva Babik, Stephanie Kurzuba, and Jessica Gabor in supporting roles. Now, of course, the film's plot, though. Now, the plot of this film follows stand-up comedian Bert Kreischer. Now, this is a fictionalized version of himself. So this is Bert Kreischer as himself, but in a fictionalized setting. So his past catches up to him 20 years later when he and his father are kidnapped by someone Bert wronged while drunk on a college semester abroad in Russia. Now that is an interesting plot right there. So this is basically taking place 20 years after the whole college trip abroad in Russia. And of course, Bert Kreischer did a stand-up routine about his time in Russia, and this is where the famous machine came in. Like, basically, Bert Kreischer is revealing himself as being the machine. In fact, the actual stand-up routine is on Netflix and YouTube as well. Plus, there is a actual clip of the routine story where Bert is talking to the audience about his time in Russia while explaining his origins of the machine. But with this movie is basically it's not a retelling, but it's basically a new story while basically going back to his past roots of him as a college student and becoming the machine. So anyway, following its viral success, Legendary Entertainment acquired the rights to adapt Kreischer's stand-up routine into a feature film in September of 2018, and most of the lead cast members were hired from April to June of 2021, and filming began in Serbia in April of 2021 through Balkanic Media. So the film was released on May 26, 2023, while being distributed by Sony Pictures Releasing under its Screen Gems label, and it received mostly negative reviews from critics and became a box office bomb. So basically, this movie had a budget of $20 million, and the box office for it was $10.7 million. So this movie didn't last long in theaters for some reason. So this movie didn't last long, and not a whole lot of people really enjoyed this movie. Although the reception to it, I mean, while it was negative, it was I while it was negative, but there were definitely some positive feedback from from audience members, right? Like for example, on Rotten Tomatoes, the machine earned a 31% on Rotten Tomatoes, while there is a audience score or popcorn meter of 86%. So technically, there's a huge crowd of audiences who really enjoyed this movie, even if the movie is not that great. Now, to put it politely, I think this movie is a prime example of so bad it's good, because in this movie, like, yeah, there's a lot of bad, but at the same time, there are moments in this movie where, like, yeah, it's bad, but at the same time, it's good, like in a so bad it's good type of way. Now, to me, I didn't think the movie was bad first time watching. I actually had a good time watching this movie. In fact, I've had to be completely honest. I don't know much about Bert Kreischer up until this movie came out. In fact, I have seen the actual stand-up routine after I saw the movie, just so I could get a better understanding of, okay, of what's going on. But also at the same time, when it comes to Bert Kreischer as a comedian, because Bert Kreischer is not only an actor but a comedian, and he's also a podcaster too. And to give you some context about Bert Kreischer, he was basically featured in an article in Rolling Stone while attending Florida State University, and at the time, the magazine named Kreischer the top partier at the number one party school in the country, which was actually Florida State University. And it's one of those big universities throughout the country where a university will become like one of the biggest, party schools, if you know what I'm saying. And of course, Bert Kreischer is one of those guys in his prime time. And of course, he did stand up. He did some stand up comedy while in school too. Plus, this is where he also went to college. He also went to Russia, to which funny enough, he mistaken that class because he mistaken that class for Spanish, until a few classes later he realized that this is not Spanish. It's basically a Russian class. and it's actually explained in his stand-up routine, if you have seen it. Anyway, yeah, Bert Kreischer is basically he's basically a comedian at this point. But of course, he also tells a lot of stand-up stories, to which some people thought it was either, to this day, some people thought some of his jokes or stories during his stand-up routine are basically either are basically real, or are basically true or false. Sometimes it's a bit of both. And in fact, his stand-up routine of the machine, it's actually a mix of both, of being real or of being true and false. Like, yes, I believe, and some aspects of his stand-up routine is true. In fact, if you watch his stand-up routine on that, you'll probably understand it a little more. Like, as his stand-up routine is, he knows how to bring the energy to it, if you know what I'm saying, right? But anyway, that's just my little brief background on Bert Kreischer. But anyway, how about we break down this movie while explaining a little bit of trivia for you. So anyway, it's time. So anyway, let's talk about 2023's The Machine. So the movie opens up at a casino in Moscow, Russia, where a gangster is watching the stand-up routine of comedian Bert Kreischer, who is playing himself, and this is a fictionalized version of himself, discussing his infamous machine story where he got involved with the Russian mafia while in college. the gangster claims Bert has something that belongs to him and is preparing to go after him. Like this Russian gangster is watching Bert's stand-up routine, and this is the routine that came out in 2016, and the guy sees it is like, this guy stole something from me. I want to get the machine. And this is him talk. This is this Russian gangster talking in Russian as he's about to, he wants to hunt down. He wants to hunt down Bert Kreischer for stealing something that belonged to him. And we find out later in the movie that it's basically a special pocket watch that this Russian mafia gangster wants back. And as the credits roll, it shows a montage of Bert Kreischer being a successful comedian because of his big story. And he's basically what he does. He's basically being famous, going on other podcast settings. And yes, he is in real life he is a podcaster. So so that's amazing. So that's amazing too. And of course, he also drinks a lot too, because we do find out that even outside of comedy, Bert Kreischer drinks a lot. And of course, it also mentions that too in this movie. We find out that that he actually drinks in this movie. So, and the credits keep on rolling and rolling. However, his personal life has not been so simple, as he is married to Leanne, being played by Stephanie Kurzuba, and has two daughters named Sasha and Tatiana. Sasha's being played by Jessica Gabor, and Tatiana's being played by Amelie Villiers, and Tatiana's being played by Amelia Villiers. And Bert and his family are in therapy because, obviously enough, Bert is talking about, his own personal issues, while also bringing up the discussion of Bert's father, right? And of course, like, Bert's wife and eldest daughter don't give into this whole conversation, and of course, they all left the room, and it was just Bert and the therapist talking. The reason why this is happening because Bert did a live stream of Sasha getting arrested when she went to pick him up because he was drunk. So that was the reason why this whole therapy session is happening, and why Bert's eldest daughter is not having it. So anyway, the Kreischers throw a birthday party for Sasha, but she is unhappy because she wanted a small gathering with friends, and Bert's invited people he knows. And this gets Sasha upset, and because she believes that everything that Bert is doing is about him, right? Like, it's always about him, and it's not really about, what's around him, right? It's basically about him. He's trying to be like the coolest guy in the neighborhood, if you know what I'm saying, right? Because of his own stand-up routine. In fact, it's also mentioned too that Bert's wife tells him that I think you should go back on stage and do more stand-up routines, right? And this was something that was brought up in this movie. In fact, there was even another mention where one of the party goers sees Bert and is like, hey, the machine, and Bert was like, oh no, not today, brother. And because he thinks he doesn't want to see himself basically, being this old stand-up kind of guy. I think he's kind of done with it. Plus of course his own personal issues after that whole live stream of thing that happened between him and his daughter. And then later on, Bert's father, named Albert, who's being played by Mark Hamill, he comes to his granddaughter's birthday party, and things get a little complicated between Albert and Bert. And of course Albert thinks his son's machine story is a load of crap. And I didn't think it was a load of crap, but I mean, whether or not you think it is, you gotta admit the whole machine story made him famous, to be quite honest. And the two started to argue, but even before that, Bert and his eldest daughter Sasha get into an argument. This is basically the whole, oh no, oh yeah, everything is about you. Like she flips her dad off before she leaves with her friends, and Bert is basically freaky out. He goes into I don't know what it is. It's probably a I forgot what it's probably a pool house, and he looks at all the memorabilia of himself as a machine, and he's basically blaming it on not only himself but also basically his memorabilia. He's like, it's your fault. Like he's blaming his stand-up routine that made him famous at this point. But of course, obviously enough, it's basically himself. Even his dad tried to cheer him up, telling him, hey, listen, if it really helps, you're always welcome to help. You're always welcome to help out at my store. I think it's a mattress store. I believe it's called, because I believe it's a mattress store that Bert's father is working for. Because it turns out that Bert's father is it turns out that Bert's father runs a mattress store in Florida, and there's like three convenient locations. And while that's going on, Birds and Alberts are being are Birds and Alberts are approached by a woman named Irina, who's being played by Iva Babik, who tells them that they have to follow her or the DJ that was hired will kidnap Sasha. And Irina claims that the machine stole a pocket watch belonging to her father, who is the same gangster in the opening. And Bert doesn't know what the woman is talking about, but unfortunately he has no other choice. Like, she pinned him down on a window, threatening him, but also trying to like threatening him, but also threatening Bert's daughter. So Bert has no choice and decides to fly with Irina to Moscow. And on the ride over, Bert meets a man named Sponge, being played by Martin Ford. I wonder what his last name is. Bob? Sponge Bob? Who has heard of his exploits as the Machine and gets into a slapping match with him. Plus, Bert's father enjoys the burger that the Russians made on the plane. He's like, my, this is a good burger, right? I think it's kind of funny that Mark Hamill is in this movie, although he's probably in this for the money. But at the same time, Mark Hamill and Bert Kreischer in this movie, I think they get along pretty good. Like the actors do get along pretty. Both Mark Hamill and Bert Kreischer, in my opinion, I think they have good chemistry in this movie despite its flaws. But let's be honest. With Mark Hamill in the role, it's actually pretty fun. It's a fun role, even if he's in it for the money. But I'm okay with that. So anyway, Bert gets into a slapping match with Sponge. He makes the first move on Sponge, but unfortunately Sponge comes out and smacks him harder. Basically, Sponge just kicked the Machine's ass. And and Bert's father was like, well, you showed fear. Because after Bert made the first move, and Sponge was like, now, it's my turn. And Bert was scared shitless because of the fact that Sponge is about to hit Bert. And this gets into a flashback where a young Bert Kreischer, being played by Jimmy Tatro, in college in 1999, where he's having this conversation with his dad while fishing about the trip to Russia. But of course, things do get out of hand, where young Bert lost the knife, and then there's an incident where Bert's father took his manhood, if you know what I'm saying, right? He's like, got your manhood. And Thank goodness it was a dream. Like, yeah, Bert's father took, Bert's father took his balls. You know what I'm saying? Oh my goodness. And we do get, I want to say, a Joker laugh from Mark Hamill, because Mark Hamill played the Joker in the Batman animated series. And of course, Bert wakes up. Bert, as a middle-aged man, he wakes up. He's in Russia, and they go, and of course they go through the city to this to this college dormitory where Bert was staying at for his trip abroad to Russia. So young Bert, who's being played by Jimmy Tatro, and he and his other classmates are at this dormitory, and of course their teacher introduced him to a banditti named Igor, and of course a banditti is basically another name for it's translated as bandit. And Igor brought Bert along to rob a train with his limited knowledge of the Russian language, and Bert made them think he was a legendary American known as the Machine, who made them laugh by quoting American pop culture like the Austin Powers movies or Beavis and Butthead. So anyway, Bert and Igor got along pretty well. Like Bert made drinks. Even some of his classmates came on by. I mean, they were hanging out inside a college dorm room with Igor and some of the gangsters. They were just basically having fun. They were just basically having fun, and and of course, pop culture references are being made. There was even Bert and Igor were having pot brownies. Oh my goodness. Who would have thought? Who would have thought Bert Kreischer would do that in that movie? But yeah, they were just having fun. But they were just having fun, and of course, the Kreischers are driven through the city where Bert's image as a machine is used to promote beer, and they are taken to a bank where they met Irina's brother Vanya, who is competing with his sister for control of the family business, and a shootout occurs, forcing Bert and Albert to hide. Bert grabs a gun and attempts to stop Vanya, only to shoot him in the head, which causes him a chain reaction where Vanya shoots another guy in the head, and that guy shoots another guy in the head, and they manage to get away with Irina. Okay, so I'm gonna pause for a second. So I want to say there's basically one, two, three different plots going on in this movie. So the first plot is just basically a father and son thing, and then there's another plot that focuses basically on the pocket watch, and then there's another one that's basically this Russian chick trying to go into the family business, which is basically the Russian mafia. There's like three different plot points going on in this movie at the same time, while also focusing on Bert Kreischer and of course this Russian chick. So this the whole shootout was was crazy, even to the point where the whole the whole thing where Bert shoots a guy and this whole chain reaction started. I thought that was hella crazy right there. It was like crazy. Even Bert freaked out. I was like, "Oh my goodness, what the hell did I do?" My goodness. Oh my goodness. But anyway, the Kreischers and Irina, they end up on the exact same train that Bert helped rob, and where they find someone that they believe is Igor, and that he has the pocket watch. Now, going off topic again, this goes into another flashback where Bert Kreischer is on the train. Well, basically now as a college student, he and his classmates are basically on this Russian train, and at one point, Bert was going to hang out with his close friend Ashley, who's being played by Rita Bernard Shaw, and the two were just gonna hang out, but unfortunately, one of the Russian mobsters, I'm pretty sure it was Igor, um, wanted him to meet up with the other Russian mafia members, and he does, and he introduces himself as the Machine. And of course goes into pop culture references, and of course goes into drinking a lot of alcohol, booze, beer, and he's basically drunk. He's basically flat out drunk while being the machine. While being the machine, which leads up to the point where he's basically robbing the frickin' train. So yeah, so yeah. At this point, Bert was basically having fun while it lasts, right? He was having fun while it lasts, because while he was robbing the train, the Russian mafia took his dad's special knife. I think it was a pocket knife of some sort. And but Bert at one point, while being drunk off his damn butt, he was like, nope, no, that is a no. That's my dad's knife. But the Russian mafia is like, I don't give a crap. I'm gonna take this knife anyway. But so yeah. But yeah. Anyway, but this also leads to the point where Bert goes into Ashley's room, and so for that moment on, Ashley smacks Bert in the face because of the fact that Bert was robbing her, and he took her ring, and at that one point he made a promise that he was gonna return it back to her, but Ashley was like, whatever, man. This was at the point where Bert was basically, Bert just crossed the line. Like, yeah, he was having fun while it lasted. So this was at the point, and even Bert himself, as a middle-aged man, is like, I was completely out of control. And he was like, for a while, I was able to fit in. I became the machine, but unfortunately, it came to realize that what I was doing, I was out of control. Because I believe it was hinted in this movie that he and Ashley were going to, start to become a thing up until the point where Bert got drunk and robbed the train. And this was at the point where he stole the watch. Like, he stole the pocket watch. Back in the present, I should say, Bert meets this Igor, not the real, this is not the Igor he knew. This is a different Igor. So, 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 um, so this is so basically what happens is, Irina. So, what basically happens is, Mark Hamill's character, Albert, has his real pocket knife, and Bert was like, You had the real knife the whole time, because because Albert's dad he wouldn't trust Bert with the other knife, if you know what I'm saying. And he was like, "Are you freaking kidding me?" So what happens is, and he's basically being held point by this other Igor, and so Albert tosses the knife to Irina, and Irina slits Igor's throat. And at this point, Igor's throat is bleeding, and he's still standing. So Bert punches him in the neck, and he screams like crazy, trying to get his fist out of the guy's throat. Oh my goodness, that is disgusting. Like, the guy is still standing, he's still breathing, up until the point where, like, Bert pushes the guy towards the train window, and it breaks. He's hanging on for dear life until a train sign comes up, and he was like, ah! Bo, 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 bo. So Bert was able to get his fist out of the guy's throat, and Igor, the guy who got his throat slit, gets decapitated. And his entire upper body lands on top of Bert, spewing blood all over him. Man, that was a crazy incident. That was crazy, but but when I saw this in theaters, I really lost my shit on that. It's like everybody, including everybody else in the theater, everybody else was losing their crap right there. Oh my goodness. Oh man. So anyway, Bert, his father, and Irina go to the other side of the train, and it turns out we are being introduced to we're being introduced to another Russian who's basically another brother to Irina, and his name is Alexia, being played by Robert Masier. And basically, what happens? This is basically just in discussion. This is more talk about the Russian mafia family, but it is also revealed that the real Igor used to run this train, but unfortunately he's not running it anymore. So, so basically another shootout happens. No, another violent scene happens where Sponge betrays Irina and shoots her out of the train, with Bert's own father pushing him off the train to protect his son while he's taken by the gangsters. So the next day, Bert wakes up on the train tracks, and I'll be honest, that is not a good land. And I'll be honest, it was not a good landing for Bert. and and Bert is basically all alone in the woods, and he's basically eating pop brownie. He gets high, and of course, there is a moment where he has a conversation with his younger self, and they both talk to each other about, hey, what's life like right now for the middle-aged Bert Kreischer, and and the young Bert Kreischer was like, hey, what's been going on? And this is like, talking to your younger self, right? And I think this is a moment that I kind of liked, actually, because this is even though Bert's high, he's basically talking to his younger self. Like, think about it for a sec. What would it be like if you see your younger self, and what would you say to that person, if you know what I'm saying, right? Like, what would you say to your younger self about, let's say, 50 years later, right? Or 30 to 50 years later, if you know what I'm saying, right? But of course, this moment gets interrupted, but where a hunter is hunting down Bert, but it turns out this hunter is basically the real Igor, being played by Nicola Dorico, and he basically he finds Bert, and he thought Bert was a bear, and this is a heartwarming moment because Bert and Igor really found each other once more. He's like, "Oh, the machine! Oh man, it's been a while." So he takes Bert to his home with his family, where Irina is also found and alive, and what's basically kind of crazy too is that when Irina is woken up, he gets like Igor Spanley. I don't really know how to say. I don't really know how to put this, but oh man, Igor Spanley mistakes Irina, basically like, oh yeah, we found this whore in the woods and brought her back. And what's also funny too is that Bert recognizes Irina, but unfortunately her leg is impaled by this giant stick, and Bert tells Igor, I know this whore. Please help me. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I don't know what goes down in Russia, but the way how Bert delivered that, oh boy. So anyway, Bert helps Irina inside Igor's house to get this stick out of her leg, and Bert attempts to throw up in his hand and puts it in his pocket. Even Irina was like, "Did you just put that in your pocket?" Oh crap. But of course, Bert was able to pull the stick out of her leg, and Igor comes in with a little, I want to say towel, because Bert tells Igor to get something to wrap around her leg, and when Igor saw Irina's leg and the stick out of her leg, he throws up for real. So anyway, Bert and Irina have a heart to heart over their relationships with their fathers, and how him live streaming Sasha's arrest made him realize that the party guy image he had cultivated that made him famous is not who he wants to be anymore. But Bert later has a mental heart to heart with his younger self, and that's the thing that I mentioned already. talking about the man he has become and the man he has to be. And that's the moment that I already talked about. But of course, talking about more is basically the party guy. And I think this is like a moment where you kind of realize yeah, it's cool to be the party guy, but how far can that person go to be the party guy, but also screw up, if you know what I'm saying, right? Because even though Bert Kreischer is a party guy, there is a time where, yeah, maybe being a party guy is too much, right? And that's kind of like Bert realizing that, you know what, I don't want to be the party guy anymore. So basically, he wants to give up on that and, try a new thing, right? Be a different person to help those that are important to you, right? Like his family, right? Like not only his family but his dad as well. And I think that's a pretty good thing. So anyway, Bert and Irina, they found the pocket watch because Igor had the pocket watch and left the criminal life behind and settled down, and that was a good thing. It's actually nice that Igor left the criminal life and try and settle down and raise a family, and I believe that was a good thing too, because I think him continuing his criminal life would have made things a lot worse. Kind of like how Bert wanted to settle down and trying to not be the party guy, realizing that, hey, maybe being the party guy is too much, and you know what, maybe it's time to settle down. And I think that's a good thing, and I believe that is a good thing right there. So anyway, let's move forward. Bert and Irina take the pocket watch and go to rescue Albert, who is high on drugs and is being kept by Irina's older brother Alexia. And what's also funny too is that we get another laugh from Mark Hamill, and I think that's the closest we're gonna get to a Joker laugh. He's like, "Look at me, I am high on this thing." Like that's the he laughs and that's basically the laugh you hear from Mark Hamill. It's coming, right? It's coming, right? But to those who know Mark Hamill as the Joker from Batman the Animated Series, but also, yes, everybody's going to remember him as Luke Skywalker as well. So, so anyway, so anyway, so anyway, there's another shootout that happens, but it's inside this casino, and Albert, and of course Albert hands Bert a handle of vodka so that he can become the mother freaking machine. And once Albert said that, all the gangsters were laughing, and Bert's like, "No, you gotta party with me." So he parties with all the gangsters by knocking them out. Like, he drop kicks two Russian gangsters. He uses this, I think it's a Russian roulette spinning wheel, and he tosses it at one of the Russian mobsters, and he's like, "Suck my dick, Captain America!" Like, oh my goodness. And he continues to fight these guys up until the point where he comes face to face with Sponge. Like, he gets knocked out for a sec, but unfortunately his dad comes in, but he gets knocked out too. Unfortunately, both Kreischers knocked over the statue of Lenin, and Albert holds up this sickle, I believe what it is, and impales Sponge, because it turns out Bert literally tied both shoelaces together to trip him over, and Albert impales Sponge with the sickle, and Bert's like, "Absorb that, Sponge!" and that's basically it. Until then, another fight comes in between Alexia and Bert, and also Alexia gets stabbed in the chest with Bert's knife. So basically, Alexia and Bert get into a fight, and at one point Bert gets the upper hand, but unfortunately Alexia, who is basically, I guess he's basically a Russian wrestling jiu-jitsu, I believe, gains the upper hand on Bert. Like, he kicks Bert's ass, leading him to kicking him outside, and knocking out his crown, his little tooth, right? Like he spits his tooth out. While Alexia was the better fighter, he does get defeated by Bert and Irina. So Irina and Alexia's father arrives, and when Irina presents him with the pocket watch, he refuses to thank her or allow her to take control of the family because she is a woman. So Irina responds by shooting and killing her father, he appears to be proud as which he appears to be proud of as he dies with a smile. The other gangsters are then forced to submit to Irina now that she is their new leader. And I'm pretty sure Alexia is arrested, but of course Alexia vows vengeance on Irina. So then Bert and Albert return home on better terms, and Bert attempts to be a better father and husband. And when he returns to therapy, he talks about having a life-changing experience in Russia, to which he begins to tell a new version of the machine story. And that's basically it. That's basically the whole breakdown of this movie. Now, I know a lot of people didn't like this movie, and you know what? That's totally fine. I mean, everybody is entitled to their own opinions of whether or not they like this movie. But I think this movie is basically one of those action comedy movies where you gotta like expand your disbelief. Yes, it's ridiculous, but at the same time, it's fun. I think this is a fun movie. Fun movie, to throw on, expand your disbelief. I wasn't really expecting a masterpiece of some sort. I was just expecting to, watch a fun movie. And I think this movie is fun. Although, I will say though, I feel like this story could have gone in different directions, right? I feel like I feel like this movie could have gone in different directions in a way where like, okay, maybe Bert Kreischer is real. Okay, maybe this is the machine story, but how come this is not a retelling of it through the perspective of Bert Kreischer while, exploring his younger self? I mean, yeah, we get to see that, but I got a feeling like if this was really a retelling of the machine story, that should have been said through the perspective of Bert Kreischer while being on stage, and then we get this whole flashback as the movie with a younger Bert Kreischer. And I really like the casting choice for the young Bert Kreischer. I mean, Jimmy Tatro, I believe that's who he played. That's the guy who played the young Bert Kreischer. Did a real good job playing him too. I mean, I think Bert Kreischer did real good as a fictionalized version of himself, including Mark Hamill as his father. I mean, both of these guys did a real good job. Both of these guys did a real good job, including Jimmy Tatro as well. But like I said, if this was basically Bert Kreischer telling the story through in the flashback through his perspective, I think it would have worked. I think it would have worked pretty well, being a typical tongue-in-cheek comedy, if you know what I'm saying. But also, but also, if they were actually gonna do like the whole Russian story, I feel like that could have happened midway through, during that that first during that whole perspective of the story, where it's Bert Kreischer, where is Bert Kreischer telling the actual story. But that's just me. That's just my opinion. Plus, also to add to, it's also mentioned that Bert Kreischer left the stand-up routine and party man image, but I thought they would at least dive into another, maybe one scene where he does a stand-up routine as the Bert Kreischer that he is in that movie, doing another stand-up routine. I really wish they would do that. Just one stand-up routine. I think it would have at least helped the movie, even if that stand-up routine took place in Russia in that movie. I wish that really happened, but we never got that. But I think that but hey, whatever. But also the fact that this movie, to me, now this is just my own perspective. This movie had three plot points going on. One was basically the father and son storyline. The other one was just basically, the whole pocket watch situation. And then the other one is basically Irina being, trying to like run the family mafia business. And I'm gonna be honest, that's too many plot points. That's like three different plot points going on at once, right? Even though yes, it does have connections with the whole family relationships, but I feel like why do we need this whole subplot with this Russian mafia family business, right? I mean this movie can keep the Russian mafia, but why do we need this plot of this whole hey, this person wants to be, hey, this character wants to run the family business, if you know what I'm saying? I mean, this isn't The Godfather, right? It's not The Godfather. The Godfather was its own thing. This is the machine. Bert Kreischer's the machine. That was basically the main focus. That's supposed to be like one of the main focuses of this movie, but it really strayed away and trying to like do this whole family mafia business, right? I mean, sure, yeah, Bert's father runs a family business as well, which is basically a mattress shop in Florida, right? So yeah, but anyway, I didn't think though, but yeah, but anyway, I mean, this whole movie didn't bother. I mean, it didn't bother me. I thought it was fine. I thought it was fine. I thought that this movie was fine, and of course, yeah, the three plot points really, I want to say it was a little too much on my part, but that's just my opinion. But if you guys like these plot points, that's fine. I understand that. But anyway, before we close off, let's talk about a little bit of trivia for you. So anyway, Bert's real life wife, Leanne Kreischer, is actually seen near the start of the film as the mom at the Sweet 16 party who Bert does not get along with. Now, of course, also to mention, Bert Kreischer and Mark Hamill got along very well during filming, and Hamill would often make Kreischer laugh out loud by saying iconic lines of his character Luke Skywalker, although that time with profanity. That's weird. I wonder what a R-rated Luke Skywalker would sound like. But also is also kind of crazy too. There is one jab at Mark Hamill's Joker, to be quite honest with you, and and that's basically on the train Bert because on the train Bert says I killed Batman's parents, and of course it's a reference to Mark Hamill, who is basically famous being the voice of the Joker, and also and of course, also this is also based on the story of Bert Kreischer's brief time studying abroad in Russia. Now, of course, Bert's father in real life is a lawyer and not a carpet store owner. I thought he was a mattress store owner, but no, carpet store owner. I think that sounds about right. I think that sounds about right. So yeah, so basically, Bert's dad in the movie is a carpet store owner, while the real life Bert Kreischer's dad is basically a lawyer. And of course, the movie takes place 20 years after his infamous train robbery in Russia. And I also mentioned that this movie was filmed in Serbia. So obviously, scenes depicting Russia were filmed in Serbia. And of course, in the original story, as told by Bert in his stand-up routine, both the first and second Russian mobsters hired for his class trip were named Igor. In the film, the second is named Fedor. And of course, the name was most likely changed to eliminate confusion between characters. And of course, there's also a mention of one of his buddies. Like Bert Kreischer has a buddy named Tom Segura, and on a structure on an underpass, someone has spray painted the words "Tom is fat," and this references Bert's friend and podcast co-host Tom Segura, and they have a long time running joke where they call each other fat every chance they can. And yes, of course, there are references to where Bert is basically since this is a action comedy, I want to say a fat John Wick. I think that's how to say it, and of course, even like the Russian mobsters kind of point this out. It's like, hey, you're no machine. This guy's overweight. He's fat. Even to the point where, even to the point where it does lead into one of the moments where it made me laugh, where Bert's trying to like get back up on his feet by doing this, I forgot what it's called. I forgot what it's called, but it was during the final fight between him and Alexia. He tries to get up, but he tried to do this jump move on his back, but he does it, but unfortunately, he lands on his back and hurts his back because of his because he's basically an over. He basically let himself go at that point. And that part actually got me to laugh. He tried to do it. It was like, oh my back. Yeah, oh man, that's what happens when he let himself go. That's what happened when he let himself go. In that movie, I'm talking about in that movie. But anyway, another trivia for you. Even though most of the backstory, which sets up the film's plot, is largely based on a true story, as of the time of the film's release, neither of Bert's real life daughters have actually ever been arrested. So the whole daughter being arrested was actually made up for the movie. So that did not happen in real life. And also, here's an interesting fact: film director Oliver Stone, who did the Vietnam War movie Platoon, tried to make a movie about Bert Kreischer's life in the 1990s and the 2000s, but I think for some reason it didn't go through. But of course, this movie is directed by Peter Atencio, so he was able to get the movie on board. So he was able to get the movie in production, and of course, so of course this whole and of course the one last trivia for you. In 1997, during Kreischer's sixth year at Florida State University, and yes, sixth year, because obviously enough, Florida State at the time ranked as one of the top party schools in the country, and Bert Kreischer was named like the number one party guy. Was named the number one party guy at the time. And the university was ranked number one by the Princeton Review in their annual list of the top party schools in the United States. Later that same year, Kreischer became the focus of a 6-page article in Rolling Stone, who named him the top partier at the number one party school in the country, titled Bert Kreischer, the Undergraduate. The article recounted Kreischer's party hijinks, which included bouts of heavy drinking and public nudity. For the Rolling Stone article, director Oliver Stone optioned the film rights to Kreischer's life. When the development deal with Oliver Stone fell through, all the scripts that were submitted went back to their writers. One of these writers changed Kreischer's name and sold the script to National Lampoon, and that became the basis of the 2002 film starring Ryan Reynolds titled National Lampoon's Van Wilder. So basically, a Bert Kreischer inspired movie was actually used for the Ryan Reynolds movie National Lampoon's Van Wilder. There you have it. There's your trivia for you. And I'll say this though. I'll say this though. As crazy as this story is, I thought the movie was fine. It's a film that you can like expand your disbelief on. I mean, I'll say this: if I were to give a rating, I'll give it a 6 out of 10. I mean, I think the story is okay. It's just like there were so many plot points. There were just a lot of plot points going on that were just added to the story so much, and I think the movie could have gone in a different direction. But to be quite honest, I was okay with it. I thought Bert Kreischer himself. I thought Bert Kreischer playing himself was alright, including the inclusion of Mark Hamill as well. But it's not a masterpiece or anything. I think it's just your typical, action comedy film to sit down, have fun with, and of course expand your disbelief on. Another thing I'd like to mention is the transitions. I really love how this movie transitions from past to present, especially when it comes to Bert Kreischer's younger self, because we get transition shots where it's Bert Kreischer in the present day trying to dust off the cobwebs of his college life. We get camera shots where it really pans from Bert Kreischer as a middle-aged man to Bert Kreischer as a college student, and it is done so well and clean. Like, you don't even realize that. Like, the way how it's done is polished so well in this movie. Like, we see a lot of that when it, we see a lot of that when we get the scenes between, where we get scenes where, oh yeah, one scene it features Bert Kreischer as a middle-aged man, and the next scene is basically Bert Kreischer as a young college student. And also, I also like how the movie does end with Bert Kreischer returning the ring to his old college friend Ashley at the end of the movie. Like he puts the ring in an envelope, and it basically delivers it back to her when she was, I believe she was at her house or at work, and she does smile, and she actually smiles and is happy to get the ring back, while Bert leaving a note to her as well. So that's another moment that I really liked. But other than that, that's about it. So there you have it, folks. That is my review on the Machine movie starring Bert Kreischer. If I were also had to add anything to it, I would also say check out his stand-up routine. It's on his YouTube channel, and it is on Netflix. So check out his 2016 stand-up routine of The Machine. So so anyway, that is a wrap on this episode. And to anybody who's listening, what did you guys think of the Machine movie that came out in 2023? Did you like this movie? Did you not like this movie? Did you think this movie was okay? I would love to hear your thoughts. But anyway, that is a wrap on this episode. Thank you all for tuning into Codo Cinema. I'm your host, Mark Codo, aka Codoman. Remember to watch movies and stay positive.